By the end of this video, you'll be able to create a workflow which fetches stock trade transactions by US Congress members and senators, with absolutely no coding involved for non-techies and complete beginners. So, if you're looking to get inside the tip on how policymakers trade their stocks, this would be an excellent workflow to have. In this video, I'm going to show you a step-by-step guide on how you can leverage n8n, Firecrawl, and Gmail to send you congressional stock trade information right into your email. The information we're extracting comes from Quiver Quantitative, a website which tracks Congress members' trades. So, let's get right into it. So the first thing you want to do is head over to n8n, and if this is the first time you're seeing n8n, you might want to check out my other video where I'll guide you on a step-by-step guide as to how to get set up on n8n, and it's pretty easy, pretty simple. But in this case, what you want to be able to do is to set up your trigger note, and in this case, you want it to be an on-schedule note. In this case, I want it to be scheduled in the morning at 10 a.m. where I want the news to come in, right? So I'm just going to click on execute step there, and you'll be able to see the timestamp here. And yeah, there we go. So that's your on-schedule trigger. Now, before we move on to the second note, which is the HTTP request note, I thought I'll take a few moments to talk a little bit about API. So first of all, what is API and why do you need to care about it? Well, just think of API as a tool of communication between your n8n to external tools or services such as Telegram, Tably, or Firecrawl, whatever you have, even Gmail, right? So API or application programming interface, you can think of it as just a means of communication to these tools. And while you don't need to know how to code to be able to use API, n8n specifically, leverages the no-code environment, which allows you to tap into the Power API without touching any code at all. You do need to understand the concept, the underlying concept of an API, right? So an easy way to think of an API is an analogy of a client-server relationship, right? So for example, you're at a restaurant, you're the client in this case, or rather your n8n workflow goes to a restaurant, and you want to get dinner, you want to get food, you want to get beverages, and the way you communicate it is through the waiter, which in this case is the API, right? And the order or the request basically goes to the back kitchen, which in this case is the external app or services, right? So this could be, again, the Telegram or Google Drive or Gmail or whatever, or Telegram, Firecrawl, Tably. And basically the request that you sent across to the waiter is the API request, right? And we'll get into how this looks like and stuff like that, but basically the architecture is that the API sends that particular request to the kitchen, it gets back an output, and basically what you get on the n8n side is the result. So you can think of it in a simple format like this, right? And within the request API, we can imagine it like an order card, right? The same way the waiter will write down your order. There are a few components that goes into that, right? And the first one is the header of the API. Now, in the header contains the relevant information as to the order sheet. So things like, who's the sender? What kind of format is this request sent on? Is it JSON? Is it some other type of format? And most commonly, the authentication as well, which is the API keys. Now, what is the authentication, right? So basically, this is a key that tells the server, or the API in this case, that you are a client of a valid client of theirs. So imagine you're going into a private event, into a VIP private event, and you need a specific pass to get into that event. So API's access token or authentication is basically the key for you to get into that event, and the key for the API order server to send the request over to the kitchen, right? So what does a typical header look like in JSON format? You typically see something like this. You don't really need to get into the weeds of how the formatting and how to code and stuff like that, but good for you to understand what it typically looks like. It typically involves the format of the API as well as the API keys for authentication. Now, as for the body, so this typically contains the request of the API, which is the meat of the thing. And in this case, as an example, is for us to search this particular URL, which is quiverquant.com, to extract information on stock trades, right? So this API goes to Firecrawl, which basically what it does is a service to extract information on particular stock trades, right? So this is what we're putting into the request of the body, right? And it will look something like this, sending it to the right URLs and prompting with blah, blah, blah. So basically, yeah, just to you understand. But the most important thing is with n8n, you don't need to code to work with APIs. So now that we've covered the API core concept, the next node is going to make a lot more sense. So what we want to be able to do here is on schedule trigger, we want to be able to call Firecrawl as an external service or tool to extract the information that we need. So in this case, we're going to make a HTTP request, which is basically an API request that we've just gone through in our API core concept, sent across to Firecrawl service. Because Firecrawl is not a node that is pre-designed and lives natively on n8n just yet, we do need to import the curl command or the curl script into this HTTP request node. And in order to do that, we need to head over to Firecrawl. What you want to do is hit Firecrawl and go to firecrawl.dev and just sign up. In this case, automatewithmarc@gmail.com. You go and just use a strong password. We can sign up. There you go. All right, so you need to go back to your Gmail, your password, and confirm that that is your email, and just finish up some final onboarding. Let's do that. Go to Firecrawl, so you can skip all of this. I agree, and submit. All right, so now you're ready to take it for a spin. What you want to do here is head right over to the docs and look for the agentic features extract and go through the documentation a little bit, and you can see that there's a curl command here, and just copy that. Go back to your n8n HTTP request node and go to the import curl and just paste the entire script in the import curl, and it will basically structure your fields the way that you need to structure it, right? So the next thing you need to set up is the authentication portion, and in this case we want to choose generic credential type, go to header auth. Basically we want the authentication to come into the header portion of the request, and in this case you see we've got a bunch of credentials already set up, but I'm going to show you exactly how to set a new one up here. So I'm just going to call this Firecrawl demo auth 1. All right, so if you look at the documentation here, you can see that there are two values that you gotta keep in mind. First is the name authorization. So this needs to be letter for letter exactly the same. So the name needs to be authorization. And the next thing is you need to type in the format of the API key exactly this way. So you need to copy your API key first and just type in the value exactly like that. So in this case, bearer space and then paste your API key, right? So there you go. Just want to let you guys see that. So essentially bearer space the entire key and click on save. Okay, so now that's already set up. You can turn off the headers portion because that comes under the authentication, and basically now we have to define the JSON body content. Now this part gets a little bit tricky, but essentially what you need to do is to replace these URLs to the URLs that you want Firecrawl to extract from, right? So in this case, you're gonna take all these and head back to Firecrawl, and in this case, what we want to do is to try out extract in the playground environment within Firecrawl, right? So the reason why we want to do that is it's going to give you a good understanding on how the JSON body structure works, right? So, so essentially, this is an open field where you can type in basically what you want the AI to do for you. In this case, the Firecrawl AI. So from here, you're going to say, I want from this web page all the notable Congress member trades over $50,000 in the past 1 month, include Congress member's name, party, blah blah blah, right? So I'm just going to generate parameters here. And it's going to give me a pretty useful structure or schema in this case that basically dictates which data goes to what element, right? So this is super important, which is why I'm doing this. The reason for that is to, first of all, we can run that and see if it's fetching the right data for us. And there you go. It took a while, but yeah, it's fetching the pretty relevant data here. So great. So we can use this particular structure. So what we want is to just toggle this to a JSON view and copy the entire JSON script here and go back to your n8n and basically start from schema all the way down and just paste that. Cool. And yeah, not to forget, I'm missing the prompt here. So the prompt that I wanted was this, which is the same prompt that I fed into Firecrawl earlier, which is extract all notable Congress member trades over $50,000 in the past month. So yeah, let's execute step and see if it's able to. All right, so it needs to be valid JSON. Okay. So what you want to do is just copy the entire thing. You can obviously go through it. It's probably a formatting issue, right? But an easy thing that you can do is just copy it. Go over to ChatGPT, and can you format this JSON script? Okay. And just let it do its thing. Okay, and just copy that, go back to n8n, replace that, and let's try to execute step. There you go. The post request gone through, so that's successful, and now you have completed the setup of the HTTP request. Let me just do a naming here, which is post request. All right. Cool. So now what you've done is basically you've sent in a post request to Firecrawl. So Firecrawl, if you remember the analogy, you've passed on the order to the server. The server has brought it back to the kitchen. So it's cooking the dish. The dish here in this case is to extract information from that particular page, which contains all the Congress trading stock trades, right? So it's currently doing that. It takes time for it to do that. As you can see, when we tried to fetch the data earlier, it took a while for it to get back some results. So what we want to do is basically essentially just wait. In this case, we're gonna say wait 60 seconds. Okay. All right. And after we wait, hopefully it's ready, then we will have another HTTP request. In this case, we want it to be a GET request, right? So again, the analogy is you sent in the order for them to cook the dish, and now you want to retrieve the dish. That's why you needed the GET request to essentially pull back the result from Firecrawl. Okay, so now we have to, in the same manner, set up the GET request. So click on import curl. And in this case, what you want to do is to head back to Firecrawl, which is under the same documentation, the extract documentation. And so just scroll down to this curl command here, which is the get curl command, and copy that. Oops. And paste it to the import curl, and pay attention to how exactly it is identifying the extraction ID. So it actually goes into part of the URL, which is / the extract ID. So what you want to do here, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong one. Let's execute the previous nodes. Okay, so there we go. So what you want to do is to make sure that the / ID or the extraction ID is correct. So again, we want it to be a variable. Sorry, let me just change that to an expression. We want this to be a variable, and the reason for that is because the ID changes every time that there is a post request. So we want this to change every time as well. So authentication type, still generic. Credential type is going to be the same, header auth, and the one that we used was demo auth 1. Right. So all right. So let's execute step and test it out. And there you go. You're getting all the data that you need, and essentially you can now send this across to your email. So in this case, just do a Gmail node, which, if you don't know how to set it up, watch my other videos. There's a step-by-step guide on how to set this up, but it's one of the easiest node to set up. Essentially do a send operation to, in this case, mark1@gmail.com, and Congress. So subject, I would just put down Congress stop update, because it's going to be the same, and I'm going to select text as the format of the message, and I am going to drag in the notable trades here. So a bit of housekeeping at this point is that the format of the data comes as an array. Meanwhile, what you want as a message is a string format, right? So what can you do about that? What you could do is to add an added field where it's a manual mapping of all notable trades. Okay, and this is the array. Just think of array as like a series of strings, and you want to convert that into just strings, right? And let's try that out. And okay, the output is the whole chunk of stuff in the string format, right? And that will get sent to your email. And there are a couple things. Technically, this whole workflow kind of works as is, but what you want to do is, there are a couple things, right? One is the formatting. So, if this whole notable trade output gets kicked out to the Gmail, what happens is it's going to come and there's blob of chunk of words format, which is not ideal. So maybe what you want to do is you could have an AI in between to clean that up a little bit, right? So just a simple GPT-4o, for example, and please format these trait data into an easily readable email format. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I need to connect it with an OpenAI, sorry, not the tool. Okay, this is already an OpenAI. Okay. Oh, okay, so this is an account issue, so I'm just gonna try that one. Cool, okay, it looks like it's been formatted. So we should be able to, we need to change the output here. Now it's changed. Drag the message in, and yeah, that should work. So so one last thing we want to do is also remember when we were posting the post request and then doing the get request, there is a wait period of 60 seconds here. However, you know, just in case. So what happens to this flow is if Firecrawl is not ready with the result of the search, the workflow is just going to stop, right? Because it's waited 60 seconds and it's still not ready. You're not going to get anything here, and essentially everything is going to be empty here. So what you want to be able to do is in between, you want to add an if node and do what we call a loop, right? So if, and you can take from the schema, if no notable traits is empty, right? Then, sorry, so that if that's true, connect that to, I'm sorry, if that's true, we're gonna have it wait another, 30 seconds. All right. Okay, and sorry, I don't want to connect it here, and just connect it back to the HTTP request. Now, what it does is the array goes through. So basically, sorry, the result comes back from the HTTP get request. By the way, let me just rename that. So this is a get request, and if it's getting an array that is empty, which means this if condition is true, it's going to wait another 30 seconds and try to get it again, right? It's going to keep doing this loop until it is false, which means it's not empty, and which means it has values, and therefore it kicks it to the edit field, and then to the formatting, and then the message. Sorry, and then the email, right? So let me just name this formatting. All right. Okay, so yeah, so this whole workflow should work now. So let me just execute and try that out. All right, so let's see if we are receiving the update. So as you can see, yep, I'm getting the updates on the recent purchases. Nancy Pelosi happens to be here, even though this was quite a while ago. So I think we got to tweak a little bit of that prompt. Yeah, so hope that was helpful. And let me know if you're facing challenges in any portion of this build. Also, let me know if you have any ideas as to what you would like to see me build in the next video. But if you like the content, please consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.